and welcome to this vlog. I'm narrator Rebecca McKernan, and today I'll be sharing with you an excerpt from the fabulous Martin Schiller's Blackbird. It's not a trilogy, it's a four-part. What's the word for that? This is the third of the four-part series, the penultimate instalment of Penny's Adventures. It's a sci-fi, time-travelling, world-travelling epic. I won't give too much away, but just to warn you, this is the third out of four. The first two books have already been produced in audiobook form. So there's probably, if you're listening to this, watching this, and you haven't read the first two books, something is likely to be given away. So if you're precious, which is fine, about spoilers, maybe go back and watch the first two vlogs or listen to the first two audiobooks first. I'm going to read the prologue for you, to you from Martin Schiller's Blackbird, White Tiger of the West. Prologue, in which I detail the events surrounding the relocation of Father, Aunt Veronica and her companion to the second universe, and what followed after. There is an old proverb that exists throughout the 9 universes. It has been variously attributed to the Chinese, the Greek author Aesop, and St. Teresa of Avila. But no matter the time or the source, its message is always the same. Be careful what you wish for, lest it be granted. This certainly proved to be the case when it came to relocating Father and Aunt Veronica to London. Once my mother had given her agreement, and I had recontacted them, with Major Sixkiller's inestimable assistance, the move itself proved quite unlike the one that Elizabeth and I had made from Lady Anne's residence to Charlotte Place. After all, we were not simply packing up a few suitcases and driving them across town, but transporting my in-laws and all of their possessions, or at least those they could not bear to part with, from one entire universe to another. Fortunately, we had the assistance of Seattle's bookmen to call upon, and they in turn provided us with robotic lorries and several mechanica to do all the heavy work. As for the journey itself, it was accomplished through the agency of a much larger model of the standard phase ship called the Gamelle, which I will explain at length and at a later point in this narrative. It easily accommodated our needs, and it was flown by a very capable pilot from El Dorado. And upon our arrival in London, old Fred was immediately pressed into service, bringing everything into our home and up to the 3rd floor, which had been set aside as Father's residence. Given the contentious relationship that he and Aunt Veronica enjoyed, she and her long-time companion, Miss Haverhill, were immediately taken in by Lady Anne, and in turn she saw to it that they were ensconced in their own townhome in Belgravia. The only issue that still required our attention concerned Father's age and the stairs that he would be compelled to ascend on a daily basis. Initially, we considered the installation of an elevator. However, when we considered the cost involved, the inconvenience of having workmen tramping through our home, not to mention the rather questionable safety of such a device, which in 1890 was hoisted aloft by nothing better than hemp ropes, we discarded the notion entirely. Our alternative was to provide the old gentleman with a spare puddle jumper, which had been provided by Lady Anne. This afforded him the ability to teleport anywhere within a 100-metre radius, thus avoiding the stairs, as well as the expense and nuisance of a construction project. From this, my readers might suppose that all was well and good, but they would be just as unaware as I of the true nature of Father's childhood, or the level of Aunt Veronica's commitment to certain radical causes. Alas, in his youth, my sire had been given to a streak of mischievousness, which had quietly followed him well into maturity. Moreover, he grew quite accustomed to the puddle jumper's vertiginous effects, and employed the device with great regularity, so much so, in fact, that some of our staff, who were not fully acclimatized to the master's technology, were pushed to the very limit of their sanity. Father positively delighted in using the puddle jumper to appear when and where he would, straight out of thin air, and in so doing scared our poor maids nearly to death. Of course, he always apologized to his victims, but the twinkle in his eyes was unmistakable. However, despite this pranksterism, he still remained quite conservative on many subjects, including and especially the rights of women and universal suffrage, both of which he staunchly opposed, which brings me to the matter of Aunt Veronica. I do not think that she was a resident of London for any more than a week ere she convinced Lady Anne to introduce her to the most radical elements of the suffragist movement, nor was it terribly long before my aunt and several of her fellow activists were arrested for having chained themselves to a lamp-post during a protest march. Thankfully, I was able to prevail on Sir Edwin, for he was still Lady Anne's devoted slave, and he in turn convinced the magistrate to release her from jail. Like father, the wilder side of her nature had emerged full force, and looking back, I realised that her introduction to the second universe was akin to letting a wolf loose amongst sheep. I even believe that it was she, not Emmeline Pankhurst, who coined the motto of the Women's Social and Political Union, "Deeds, not words," although I cannot be absolutely certain, and to this very day my aunt still refuses to answer the question. One thing was not quite so ambiguous, though. Whenever she visited us, dinner conversations betwixt her and father tended to be lively, to say the least. In sum, while I was gladsome that my relations were now living in a better universe, I was also routinely afflicted by the headaches that this brought me. Therefore, it should come as no small wonder to my readers that I found myself eager for the respite of combat. It was far better and a great deal more manageable than dealing with my family. That was the prologue of Martin Schiller's Blackbird, White Tiger of the West. It's the third in his series of 4 of the Blackbird series. And in this book, Penny explores various spiritual and corporeal matters. It's perhaps the deepest of the 3 books so far. Forgive me if I'm wrong, Martin. You can listen to the whole of that book on Amazon and Audible. I'll pop the link below this vlog. Oh God, sorry, I can't talk anymore. I'd better sign off now before I say anything drastically stupid. I'm Rebecca McKernan. That was Blackbird, Book 3, written by Martin Schiller, and I will see you again soon. Mwah!